actually be conscious about this process and not give in to it. Take a pause and not give those automated, spontaneous responses, and actually think that why am I opposing this idea? What is making me uncomfortable about this idea? At that time, it will be painful because your brain is going to resist. It is going to resist really bad. But if you eventually manage to make it another part of your storage of ideas and not be resistant to it, the rewards will be much, much richer than the pain that you experience at that point. Right? Number two, revolutions are not caused overnight. And that's the reason why the cognitive dissonance gives us a peek into the human mind and why it's not easy for a child to convince parent for things that he or she deems right, but the parent is like, हम तो ऐसे नहीं करते थे. ये my generation के नए ideas हैं. It's not easy. It's so difficult to change our minds, and we are wired to be like that for our own survival. So revolutions are not caused overnight. It takes time, probably over generations, for a revolution to actually happen overnight. This is my own personal philosophy, but I just put it in that if you're not changing as a person, you're not growing as a person. And if you're not growing as a person, I think that's a complete waste of life. You've just come in and gone out without growing yourself, without expanding yourself. So cognitive dissonance actually is an opportunity. Every time you feel it, every time you're in the discomfort, it is an opportunity to look deeper within and to understand क्यों तकलीफ हो रही है. अगर वो मुझे ऐसे बोल रहा है या उसका आइडिया ये है या उसका ओपिनियन ये है, तो मुझे से तकलीफ क्यों हो रही है, और अगर हो रही है उसका कारण क्या है, कारण ये है, and that solves everything. I've tried it on myself. I would invite you to try it. I move on to the second topic. Any guesses? What is this topic? Looking at this picture. Memories, yes. Memories. I'm going to just reduce the word to a singular form. We're going to talk about memory. Just pure memory inside my head and how does it work. So let's have a quick poll. If I give you the option that right now this machine I have and it can delete the saddest, the more torturous, the most disappointing memories that you have, how many of you would take the option to get that memory deleted? Delete कर दो. हाँ यार, I mean, the saddest, the worst memory you have, the most painful memory you have, would you like to get it deleted? One. She says obviously yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Obviously that's not even close to half. Logically and obvious answer जो लगता है, जैसे शिवांगी ने बोला कि हाँ यार जो चीज़ अच्छी नहीं लगती है और बुरी चीज़ें याद आती हैं उसको delete कर दो ना. Not just other people who said नहीं मुझे नहीं delete करना. Can you give me reasons why would you not like to have it deleted? Let's listen to various reasons. Yes, sir.
That's also one of the memory.
Okay.
From which we have learned a lot.
Yeah. Okay. But memory से lessons थोड़ी delete हो रहे हैं. सिर्फ memory वो event delete हो रहा है.
It's something also related. When we write that, we come to know that was our problem, serious problem. We overcome such it.
Right. Okay.
The result of that memory is also connected with it. If the memory gets deleted, then what is it? The resultant the learning process also gets deleted,
Okay.
which is not dangerous.
Or shorter.
Okay. Any of the reasons why people chose not to get it deleted? Although it sounds like a very lucrative option. What are they?
It might change your personality.
It might change my personality.
It's a feeling. They want that feeling to stay.
The sad feeling.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
You will like others said to learn from it. Feel that feeling.
Okay. Any other answers? Why you choose to not get it deleted? No. Okay. So it's a fact, and psychology researchers have established it many a times. We love our memories. We are very attached to our memories, and we get very sentimental about them. And like we said, that what we are today is a huge product of what we were, or what we once were, and that is the reason why we cling to it so hard. Because my identity today, like you said, my personality today is a product of what I was, what I used to be, right? And that is the reason it's very important to protect it. Now, how many of you would agree that many of the decisions that we take in our daily life, right from mundane daily life decisions, कि आज मैं इस रास्ते से जाऊँ या उस रास्ते से जाऊँ, to the life-changing decisions, how much do you think, how big a role do you think memory plays in those decisions? Like, नहीं यार memory से कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. How big a decision, role does memory play in those decisions? How much do you rely on your memories, on your collected, reservoir of the lessons and experiences to make decisions today? Majorly. How many would say majorly? Please raise your hands. Okay. And how many से नहीं फर्क नहीं पड़ता 10 साल पहले क्या हुआ उससे मेरे आज के डिसीजन में कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता शुभांगी that's one. It's okay. There's no right or wrong answer. Everybody's got their choices. Okay. So everybody considers that memory is a very reliable source of information on which I can base my current decisions, but maybe it's not. And let's talk about why it's not. Okay. What if I told you that memory is not fixed? Memory is not fixed. Memory is flexible, moldable, highly prone to manipulation, and it can change even without you realizing that your memory has changed. Memories are not fixed. Most of us tend to think of memory like this. This is huge warehouse with lots of files, with nicely put in labels. And suppose I have a file named Shubhangi Gupta. Shubhangi Gupta से related मेरे जितने experience और जितना मेरा data है उस file के अंदर है और मुझे जब भी वो data चाहिए मैं जाती हूँ file निकालती हूँ खोलती हूँ जो चाहिए तो निकाल लेती हूँ. It's a very thing that information is fixed and was always there for my use. But contrary to popular belief, that's not how memory works. Whenever I try to recall a memory, the process is something like this. A memory is not recalled, a memory is recreated. Rather, the better word would be reconstructed. The brain starts pulling out whatever it remembers and start putting up a picture so you can understand. But our brains are not as efficient and there are always these parts which we don't recall. But the brain is smart, shatir hai dimag. So what the brain does is, it fabricates those missing parts. It fills in the blanks with its own ideas and gives you your so-called complete memory, and you feel very satisfied that I've got my complete memory now. And for those of you who might be already thinking, "Aisa kuch nahi hota," I have such clear, distinct memories. I can even tell you what color shirt I was wearing that day and all that. We'll talk about that also. So I hope this thing is clear to everybody. That it's not like एक piece of information मैंने ऐसे खींच के अपने conscious mind में डाल दिया और recall कर दिया. It's a process which happens in which bits and pieces are collected, and जो bits and pieces missing होते हैं उसको हम fabricate कर लेते हैं, fake बना देते हैं, नए बना देते हैं, उनको करके एक complete picture बना लेते हैं, which gives us a fair idea of what it was, right? This is the way memory functions. But there's a bright side to it. There's a bright side to it. Our memories have a superiority complex. There's a tendency for the memories to create a picture which is a bit better, brighter, and just about more positive than what the actual event was. Right? And again, it works in our favor. Why? Because it is meant to make us feel better about ourselves. It's the same thing. Cognitive dissonance, I want to feel better. I don't want to feel uncomfortable. So the memories also work in such a way. They have this tendency to work in a more positive way than how positive the scene was actually. The only exception to this is people who are depressed. So, psychologists have this thing that people who are depressed may be sadder, but they're wiser because they don't have an optimistic bias. They look at things the way they are. So, it works in our favor that memories tend to be better and brighter than what we used to be. So, if all this has not surprised you enough, there's something more. Psychologists have found out that the more detailed, the more intricate your memory is, the more likely it is to be false. जितना डिटेल में याद करूँ, हाँ उस दिन मुझे याद है मैं गाड़ी की साइड पे बैठा था, धूप चमक रही थी, मैंने एक रेड चेक की शर्ट पहनी हुई थी और उसने वाइट कलर की शर्ट पहनी हुई थी, हम जा रहे थे सामने से बहुत सुंदर सी लड़की निकली, blah blah blah. The memory which a person is recalling inside their head or recalling it to somebody else with great detail, and you're like, wow यार कितना याद रहता है तेरे को. The chances are, the greater the detail, the more false it is, and you don't even know about it. In your head, you are not lying. Please, okay, let me make this clear. In your head, you are not lying. The brain is convinced you very clearly that this is what it was, and you're telling it with great detail. And this is all part of research. This is not some scientist invented to make a good presentation. Enough of surprises. Let's talk about something shocking. All over. Let's talk about something shocking. And the shocker is that, and in case you feel uncomfortable after the shock, you can label it as cognitive dissonance. So the shocker is that it is possible, and not difficult, it's not very difficult to do it, it is possible to plant false memories in our heads. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to do it. It doesn't take a psychologist to do it. I can not just conjure up events which never happened, things which never happened, narrate them to you, convince you that they actually happened, not just that, but actually have you agree that this happened, and then add details to it. अरे तुम बोल रहे ऐसा भी हुआ था, वैसा भी हुआ था, for an event which never even happened. And for this, there was this experiment which was done. So what happened was, they took obviously like most research experiments. It was a Professor Elizabeth Loftus. She is the pioneer in this entire talk that I'm doing today. I think way back in 1974. And what they did was, they took students who were their participants, and they went to the students' parents, and they asked for 3 childhood events. उनके 3 childhood events को describe करिए. So they took those 3 childhood events, stories of those events, and they slipped in 1/4 event, which was completely fictitious. Completely fictitious. Which never happened in that person's life. And then they gave this booklet of 4 events to the participants and told them, tell us if you remember this memory, how much do you remember, what do you think is wrong or right in this memory, and so on. After the written test, they were subjected to 2 more interviews, 2 rounds of interviews, in which they talked more about those memories. And by the time this entire process finished, more than half of the people had not just agreed to that 4th fictitious event to be true, but had added their own details. So for example, there was this one photograph which was fabricated for this one person, in which he was shown sitting inside a hot air balloon. And he had never been even close to a hot air balloon. That was confirmed by his parents. And this boy was like, yeah, I remember it was this, October afternoon, and we paid $10 each to get onto that hot air balloon. I think it went up just like 20-30 meters, but we were so happy. And I remember mom was clicking this photograph because she was too scared to get on the hot air balloon. All of this never happened. And this is voluntary. Nobody planted it into their heads. Acha tumhe yaad hai kitne ki thi? No. This is like, yeah, I remember this event and da. So it's possible, and it happens all the time, that false memories get planted in our head, and like he said, that obviously can have an impact on our personality today. And that brings us to the bright side of this phenomenon. It's a bit scary, right? It's a bit unsettling. When I first read about it, I was like, whoa, what's happening? ये तो बहुत ही अजीब सी चीज़ हो रही है, मतलब false memories हमसे पता भी नहीं कि वो false है, but there's a bright side to it. So if I have an existing memory, it determines my current behavior. We agreed to this, right? So if I now have a false or an altered memory in my head, it can bring in a change in my behavior and have new behavior. So based on this this revelatory idea, Professor Loftus again did something, and it proved that it's true. If I change your memory, related to anything, for example, आपके बच्चे को करेला खाना पसंद नहीं. So as a parent, what you do is you kind of, over a few attempts, plant this false memory in their head कि तुम्हें तो करेला खाना बहुत पसंद है. जब तुम करेला खाते हो तुम बहुत खुश हो जाते हो. They did this. They actually did this. I've just used a little bit more Dixie subject. They used asparagus, I think. So, and they found out that these 10 students, after a few weeks, actually started eating more of those karelas. Because the memory was altered, so my current personality starts, because again, अगर आपको पहले पसंद था, बहुत पसंद था, इतना अच्छा लगता था, अब मैं क्यों नहीं खा रहा? There's no logical answer. So the brain then says, oh, this is illogical, this is irrational, start eating karelas today. Okay? So this can obviously be used for various purposes, and the professor contended that parents can use this to inculcate healthy, desirable behaviors in their children. At which the critics cried that this is manipulation. तो झूठ बोलना हो गया, अपने बच्चों से झूठ बोलोगे आप. And to which the professor contended, and I quote, which would you rather have? A kid with all the problems of obesity, diabetes, heart trouble, shortened lifespan, or a kid with that one little extra bit of false memory? I think I know which one I would go for, right? So this is the note on which I'm going to end this topic, that there are certain things about memory which are a bit tricky and unsettling, but there's a brighter side to everything. And finally, I have Dilbert here, who is giving us a taste of how false memories actually happen in life and how they impact us without even our knowing us. and he just keeps saying, हुआ तो कभी था नहीं, बस वो बोलते, वो झूठ बोलते रहते हैं. People in their minds, when they claiming that I did this, they're actually convinced that they did this. आपको लग रहा है वो झूठ बोल रहा है, उसको लग रहा है आप झूठ बोल रहे हो. But both of the people in their minds, most people don't like to lie, right? So when he said that actually send me that email, उसके जवाब में वो भेज चुका है, but आपको पता नहीं भेजा है. So whatever. For the last segment, we have something called what I call the 3 phases of victimhood. This is based, I don't know how many of you have heard of transactional analysis. It's a very, very famous psychological concept, the propounder of which was Eric Berne. And one of the students of Eric Berne is called the father of transactional analysis. One of the students of Eric Berne is Kaufman. That's the name which is written there. Kaufman, Stephen Kaufman, and he is the one who came up with this model, which applies to all kinds of human interactions involving 2 or more people. It applies to all interactions. I think the screen is a bit